Good morning, and it's Friday, April the 16th already. We're midway through April, and welcome to another Friday for the Faculty Spotlight at Virginia Union University. I get the awesome opportunity to sit down and have conversation with faculty throughout our campus, and it is a delight today for me to finally meet Dr. Yung Suk Kim, and our paths has somewhat crossed, but we have not had a chance to just have the kind of conversation we're going to have today. So when we were in the green room, we got a chance to learn a little bit more about him, and I'm anxious for you to hear about him as well. And so welcome again. We have a lot to unpack, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim is an associate professor of New Testament and early Christianity at our School of Theology. And he received his PhD in New Testament study from Vanderbilt University and an MDiv from McCormick Theological Seminary. He's also a recipient of the Lilly Theological Scholars Grant for Research on John's Gospel in the Context of Pluralism in 2011, and also received a research fellowship from Washington Center and Research Transformation in the Bible. And then in 2013, he also received a presidential citation for outstanding service and unselfish commitment from the VUU in 2013. He also received the Scott and Stringfellow Outstanding Professor Award from VUU in 2019. Dr. Kim has authored 15 books and edited 2 volumes. And I had a discussion with him about that. How do you find the time? But that's very impressive. His most recent book, though, is How to Read Paul, a brief introduction to his theology writings and world. And Fortress actually published that for us, him, in 2021. That's very recent. He also co-authored towards Decentering the New Testament with Mitzi Smith, and that was done in 2018. This is the first introductory text to the New Testament written by an African American woman, a biblical scholar, Ms. Smith, and an Asian American male biblical scholar. I welcome Dr. Kim this morning and so excited that he's here to share with us who Dr. Kim is. And I'm going to go ahead and get us started, Dr. Kim. Inquiring minds want to know. Tell us about yourself and your academic training and your field of expertise.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. It is my honor and to be featured this important ongoing faculty spotlight series. By the awesome grace of God, I'm here. I can't exaggerate how happy, how joyful I am here to be featured and to speak to the larger audience, including our university community. So my name is Yung Suk Kim, and I've been here and teaching in the past 16 years, almost 16 years. I came here in 2005 while I was studying at Vanderbilt. In my 4th year, I was writing my dissertation and I saw this job opening, and I took it. And anyway, I'll talk more about that, why I came to this unusual, unknown place for me. That's next topic. But anyway, so I'm Asian American, and this job is my first job in my second career, which means I have a first career, which is about the business career. And I enjoyed my life working for a Korean conglomerate company for 9 years before, embarking on a new journey, theological journey. So I had a 9 years working experience for a huge company in Korea and 4 years in Seoul, capital city of South Korea. And then I was sent by, this company to work in a foreign office, branch office. So I went to Panama, and for 3 years, I traveled a lot to Caribbean islands, Central America, South America. That's where I met a lot of, beautiful people and culture, and I encountered new people, right? So that's kind of a new experience. And then I was sent to Miami, Florida, and to establish a new branch office there. Okay. And then finally, I quit my job and I went to Chicago to study theology. This whole lot new animal, new things. So with my family, with my little three daughters, with my wife. So it's quite a new journey. That was like 1997 when I went to Chicago. And from there on, I studied almost like 10 years, like master study in Chicago and doctoral study in Nashville, Tennessee at Vanderbilt, right? So after completing that 9 years or almost 10 years study, and I got the first job in my second career. This is Virginia Union. So I came here 2005. So I'm here. So I'm very much blessed to meet my students, teach my students. I'm welcomed. I'm accepted well by my students and community. So I'm so happy. So, and my training, as Dr. Jackson, introduced me. Yes, I'm in the New Testament, right? My expertise, my training is about biblical studies, so how to read the Bible, how to interpret the, New Testament, who is Jesus, a historian mode in that regard. So my expertise is on Pauline studies. Who is Paul? Okay, what can you learn from Jesus or Paul and the Gospels and Paul's letters? And also, I'm very interested in, biblical interpretation theory. What is the Bible? How we read the Bible? What is the Bible to us today? What was the Bible in ancient times? So my, kind of a lenses of all this reading the Bible, New Testament is really broad and enough. So I think it's enough that I explained to you who I am. So there are more than this, but I will, wait for another question.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Wow. You have done some travel and you have been across the continent and you have engaged with a number of different cultures, which really kind of makes you a Renaissance man as well. And I guess that helped to round you out in your now your second career being in the academy and teaching. So tell us about your latest book, How to Read Paul, as well as any previous published work that you've done. And we know you have 15 books. Tell us a little bit about those as well.
Yeah, the most recent book, How to Read Paul, just came out just a week ago, right? So I'm really excited that this book came out. And this actually textbook for a seminary, classroom. So I wrote this book to help students to learn and unlearn, about Paul, because Paul has been controversial during his time and even today. Some people like him and others don't like him, right? He has been misrepresented by many people too, by Jews, he's considered a betrayer of a Judaism, right? For some women, he's considered, perceived as misogynist, as you can imagine, right? For African American population, because, people think that he wrote all 13 letters, right? The slavery text there in later epistles. So Paul is controversial figure, but in my study of Paul, okay, Paul is not perfect, but he has great insights. He's also follower of Jesus. So, but many people, sometimes people say that, Jesus is yes, but Paul is no. That is because some misinterpretation of Paul, because people think that Paul wrote all slavery texts too, So now critical scholarship, we distinguish between Paul's authentic letters, okay, and some later epistles, which might not be written by Paul. So I have a passion to teach about Paul because many people misunderstand him. So Paul, for me, is true follower of Jesus. That's one of my arguments that I make in this book. Paul is a true follower of Jesus. Why? For example, in Mark 1:14 and 15, Jesus proclaimed what? The good news of God, the good news of the kingdom of God. Good news of the kingdom of God means God rules the world with justice and peace. God rules the world. Jesus talked about the good news of God and cured the sick, proclaimed the good news of justice and love and mercy of God to all people, to marginalized people, right? Paul also, in his letter, Romans 1:1, he says, I'm a slave of Jesus Christ, called to be an apostle, set apart for the gospel of God. The same wording. Paul also says, well, my apostleship, I'm set apart for the gospel of God, which God promised beforehand through Holy Scriptures. And then verse 4 and 3, he says, concerning the gospel, and he talks about Jesus. In other words, Jesus proclaims the good news of God, right? So Paul's understanding is, okay, Paul also proclaims the good news of God as Jesus did, right? So that's one thing I have a passion. The other thing why I wrote this book is this, because, I have many, pastor students, right? And others who want to teach and preach about Paul. So this book has 7 theological themes therein, okay? So starting with the gospel, what is the gospel? Oftentimes we pretend to know, we think we know what the gospel is, what Paul's gospel is. But I'm challenging people, do you really know what Paul's gospel is? So we really have to struggle with the idea of the gospel or gospel of God or even Paul's gospel. So I have one chapter, gospel, what is the gospel? And then I'm moving to the righteousness of God or justification. How can we be justified? What is righteousness of God? Okay, and the faith and the freedom and the new life and the body of Christ and the Holy Spirit. I have 7 important themes which I, take from Paul's letters. So this book is very good for classroom, MD classroom, for teachers or pastors who are preaching about Paul. So I made even a sample syllabus for helping these people out there. Okay, so I have a passion there. I'm not writing just from my desk, but I'm writing from my heart. I want to connect, with the real people who are doing the work of God with this book. So I'm not just a writer, but I'm really practitioner in that regard. I want to promote my book, not to earn money, but to sell idea so that people can implement, right? People may benefit from my book. And the other books, as you highlighted, I just want to highlight my co-author, the book, toward Centering the New Testament, co-author Mrs. Smith, womanist, African womanist scholar teaching in Columbia in Atlanta. We are proud of this book. This book is greatly accepted, increasingly accepted day by day. We have good responses. Already a number of instructors using this book as textbook and using it in their classroom. So we are excited about this book. This is a great example that how scholarship, how interpretation really matters, right? Not only to us as author, but to many people who want to study the New Testament differently and to make an impact on their world. So almost one book per year. So I can't, say all the books about, I wrote, but mainly, I wrote about the Jesus, historical Jesus, and the Johannine Gospel, and interpretation theory, and also I love the parables of Jesus. I wrote a book on parables. So really, my kind of a gauging scope is really broad enough because I'm not a just kind of ivory tower thinker, but I am better like a contextual, serious historian at the same time theologian. I'm a realist, and I really want to help people to understand who God is, what Jesus did, what we can do, how we can make a change in the world, make a difference in the world. That's my passion is. That's why I wrote, books, And so all of my books actually coming from my heart, my background, my experience, my deeper struggle with justice and love. I'm not just writing for me and for scholars. I'm writing books for real people, including scholars and teachers and students.
Well, I've been to church. Thank you for that. You
Yeah.
said something that even captured me really early on, and you seem so passionate, and that is contagious for the psychic. It just makes you want to drink it in, all every word that you're saying. You
Mm,
said that you teach your students to learn and to unlearn about Paul, and I think that is so critical of a thought as an instructor to realize there's things to learn, but you may have to also help them unlearn untruths that they are stuck on, and sometimes that prevents them from having a real um, comprehension about something. And I also like that you said that you're a connector and a practitioner, not just a writer or a teacher. And they're just wonderful terms, but that was part of your passion coming out.
mhm.
Um, I have another question for you based on everything you just said. Then what attracted you to become a part of the VUU family? We know that's your second career and you saw a job announcement and you said, I think I'm going to do this. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, as I told you, when I was studying at Vanderbilt, right, I was writing my dissertation. There's a job opening, but by the grace of God, I heard about this new job opening through someone whom I met at the conference. By chance, we took a taxi cab and we shared the ride together. I didn't know him, but he was African American male scholar teaching somewhere. I talked about myself. I'm looking for a job, and he said, "Did you look for Virginia Union?" I never heard the name Virginia Union. Okay, so I thought the Union Presbyterian Seminary. I was talking about that one. And I forgot about that one. And then some months later, I realized, oh, I really need a job. And then I remembered that he's talking with me. So I Googled and I found it. And then I found this job place. I was very surprised, because I didn't know this place anyway. And then even when I was applying for this job, there was kind of 2 days before the deadline, almost done. So I emailed, Robert Wafoanaka, professor here. He was the chair of the search committee. He said, yes, you can send all applications. And really, I hurried and to finish all things like that. So anyway, when I saw this name, I didn't know. So I started to research a little bit about this school. Okay, I knew all this African Heritage School. So I compared to my background, the culture. So certainly I thought this is not easy going place. I had to somehow challenge myself, going beyond my limitations. Okay, that I prayed about it. It was actually not easy decision making, even oh, whether I should go here, no, can I do better? Okay, so finally I made discernment. I'll go to challenge myself. I learn from them. And also I'll find something, find the solidarity with this. Because I'm always kind of an advocate of justice and love, right? And also I'm kind of person who are challenging my limitations, I was a little a country boy, rural boy in South Korea, very small village growing up. But school, bigger city, even my job place, Seoul, Panama, Miami, even the US. So always my history tells me, I'm kind of an adventurer, challenging more. So I took a risk. Okay, I'll cross the boundary, a cultural boundary. So I'll be a better person to, to cope with all of things. So it was right. I'm very happy when I came here. Certainly I identified many issues with me. Okay, I just could find the very issues that I could associate. Really, my students bless me. My colleagues bless me. You know, really, this is a affirming place. I can't imagine otherwise if I have ended up in other place. Okay, I don't have any issues with the personal relationship. Okay, this is a place that I'm blessed, and also I learned a lot because of this community and students experience. Because right, yes, it was not easy when I started teaching. I learned a lot. I was challenged a lot. Yes, but overall, really, I am that I am now because of my place here. So God put me in this place. You know, Asian American, Korean American, rural boy, right? So who could know that, 40, 30, 60 years later, I'm here, they're teaching a whole lot different people, but still they understand me. Why? Because they love God and I love God, right? That's the only common denominator. So here I am. I love my community and people.
16 years.
Yes.
16 years, 2005, and this is
Only one place.
2021.
One
Yes,
place, right? In second,
yes,
one place,
yes.
deep loyalty, and I have commitment. Okay, what can
Clearly.
explain this experience other than the love of God, the love of neighbor, right? A deep commitment to
Mhm.
theological education. Okay, so I see that I have the sense of a divine calling. Right? That's what I do here.
You made a very important point that sometimes I think gets lost in the busyness of life,
Hmm.
and that is that God does call us,
Hmm.
and we are where we are intentionally designed by Him.
Yes, yes.
I want to know also, fast forward 16 years later, what are you teaching now at VUU?
Yeah, I'm teaching required courses like, foundation courses such as Introduction to Biblical Studies. Every incoming, master students are taking this course, and really that course is important, Introduction to Biblical Studies. And also I'm teaching, other required course, Introduction to the New Testament. Okay, these two required courses are so important. I make real efforts to help people understand what is there. Otherwise, I'm also teaching many elective courses like Parables of Jesus, Paul's letters, Johannine epistles, other things like that. Mainly, yeah, all these main courses. But if I can, I want to develop more courses. I have more things to teach, actually, a lot of things that I can. Okay. Yeah, I'm excited, especially in this virtual age. So maybe, I may have a better opportunities to share my, expertise and insights, because virtually is convenient, right? I don't meet people in person. So yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, I teach all those things in biblical studies in New Testament.
So, Dr. Kim, as promised, this goes by really fast. And as we are nearing to the end, I have another question for you. And
Mhm,
then I do have some questions from some of the participants.
mhm,
But with all that you said and all that you know and all the passion that you displayed, you just put it right out there for us this morning.
mhm,
What advice then do you have for those considering
mhm,
majors or minors or
mhm.
degrees in theology?
Yeah, I thought about these things, and I have a clear idea what I'm gonna to say to future, right, audience, I mean students, who are interested in, theology. I would say first thing is this: believe yourself. You are God-given unique gift, right? So don't compare with others. You have a potentials. God gave you many things already, but sometimes people don't realize that how many gifts they have. So my advice is to maximize their gifts. And also each one is unique, right? So each one, I have a certain gift from God, but also others have a different gift of God. So they should maximize their gift of God. And also, you know, my advice also, I learned from Paul, he says, test everything, right? Don't believe just others simply because someone is famous. So you have to test everything, the experience that we have, the things going on in the world, test everything. And then Paul says, hold fast to what is good. So in order to do, some good things, we have to test everything, things in the politics, things in the world, things even within myself, okay? So test everything. In order to do this, a seminary, creative education is one place, people can do comfortably, asking critical, self-critical questions, which are not rarely, which are not asked, right, usually in other settings. Seminary, creative education is really the place that the people can come here, engage freely, creatively with other people. So that would be my advice. The last thing I just want to say is that this is kind of my teaching philosophy. A good teacher satisfies students, but a wonderful teacher teaches what they need, not just what they want, what they need. And an ideal teacher teaches them with love and helping them to teach themselves. So this is kind of, I just wrote, just a few days ago in my blog, okay? And so I encourage all those who want to know more about the Bible and New Testament and Jesus and Paul, okay? You have to challenge somehow, okay, the things that you know already, but somehow there's a need to relearn and unlearn. So seminary is a great place to come and study, and with the great minds of teachers.
Thank you. Well, we do have some time, and I'd like to get in some questions.
Okay.
So let me start, and I was trying to make sure that I could get these questions. I'm going to ask the first one, Doctor in Training Ragland. Do you believe your experiences, conditions, and aspirations impact your interpretations of Paul? How do you justify your interpretations of Paul to be true?
Yeah, that's a good question. The bottom line is, I have to realize that I am not perfect. I'm very limited. I know that thing, right? I can be error, in other words. With that, but still, I have a voice to put out. In other words, the scholarship is not about the perfect truth, to communicate the perfect truth, but it's kind of a process that, okay, this scholar saying this thing, that scholar saying that thing, right? So as a reader, you have to engage different, authors, right? Who's Paul? Is right. Nobody knows, but I, Yung Suk Kim, I say this thing based on my study, not just based on my experience, but studying and experience. All things come together when I read Paul. So I'm not saying my Paul is, perfect, error free, no, I don't pretend, but I want to be truthful to my reading of a Paul, right? Yeah. Maybe some years later, I may say, oh, maybe I have a better understanding about this part in Paul's things. Okay, certainly it's possible. No problem. Yes.
So another question from Dr. Jackson, Carl Jackson. Were you saying that there are books in the Bible attributed to Paul that are not written by Paul? If so, are they God inspired?
Yeah, that is a kind of a seminary class. So you have to come and we can talk about the inspiration theory, right? There are different kinds of inspiration theory, all right? So having that inspiration theory in mind, my answer to you is that, among 13 letters usually traditionally attributed to Paul, now scholars say, 7 letters authentic. So most of them have in consensus, 7 letters of Paul are authentic, and then 6 letters are disputable, right? So some say, written by Paul, others say not written by Paul. That's debatable. So you have to look into the evidence, kind of a criteria on, okay, why people having different ideas, opinions, okay? So I believe, some letters, of, especially First Timothy and Second Timothy and Titus, most likely not written by Paul, okay, but Paul's students after he died. So anyway, this is taking more time, okay, in order to explain. But I think that's enough.
Dr. Kim, I think we have time for two more questions, and then I'd like to just make a couple statements before we end our faculty spotlight this morning.
Okay.
The book of Leviticus is very confusing. I've been able to read the book of Hebrews to compare and find understanding. What other books in the New Testament do you recommend? And that's from John. Well, it might be.
To understand what? Sorry, I want to understand you clearly.
And find how to then, okay, so they say the book of Leviticus is very confusing.
Yeah, I know, yes.
And they went on to say, I've been able to read the book of Hebrews to compare and find understanding. What other books in the New Testament do you recommend?
In order to understand the book of Hebrews, right? You mean Hebrews?
Well, they were able to read the book of Hebrews and tend to compare information, then find understanding. The book of Leviticus, I think, is still very confusing for them. And so they were wondering what other books in the New Testament then would you recommend? I'm assuming that's what the question was alluding to.
Yeah, it's really the question that I never heard. But, generally my advice is, in order to understand book of Hebrews, you have to really compare with the other Pauline letters, because the theology you see there in the book of Hebrews are very different from Paul's own writings, okay? So, which means there are different communities behind the book of Hebrews. The view of atonement, for example, Jesus' death, the view of Jesus' death in Hebrews is very different from Paul's own writings, right? So in order to understand the book of Hebrews better, I don't know what other books you have to read, but other than, comparing with the other different books, then you may have some, contrast between book of Hebrews, theology in Hebrews versus other books. I don't know, that's a really hard question, but probably that's all I can say. So time limit, so I can't develop further. I can't.
Dr. Kim, also another question, Dr. Davis, Robin Davis, asks, what do you think that Paul's ailment was that's referenced in the Bible?
Yeah, that's very specific questions. I really, personally, I'm not interested in which ailment, which kind of a disease he has. People have different ideas, eye disease, other things like that. I really, personally, yes, I know there are some scholars who want to know, right? Very specific things, ailment, sickness, things like that. But I don't have a particular, answer for that. Okay, because I do not have a real interest in Paul's physical body in that sense. What just for me, it's good enough that he was not very strong. I mean, physically. Okay, he had some thorns in the flesh. He said that. Otherwise, he did not say that I have eye disease or epilepsy. Okay, something other. But sorry, yeah, that's all my answer.
So in closing, I do want to comment that Dr. Carl Jackson again says he loves Dr. Kim's passion for God and his work. I don't just write from my desk, I write from my heart. Powerful. And another comment, Dr. Kim, and this is from Dr. Miss Shepherd. He says, let's work on a science and religion book. And then Kimberly Allen, thank you, Dr. Kim, for your passion and love you have for God and his people. And that's the student, Kim Allen. And then I like to close by this commenting on Dr. Jackson again saying, thank you. I look forward to more dialogue. This was very insightful conversation. And then great interview from Dean Howard, who had joined us as well. Dr. Kim, it's been a pleasure just having an opportunity to sit down with you. As I told you, I've been trying to meet you for a couple years now, and finally I get an opportunity today to have you as the faculty spotlight. It has been wonderful. I've learned so much about you, and your passion is just contagious. And my big question was, how do you find the time to write? We didn't get a chance to cover that, but I now know how to get in touch with you. So Dr. Kim, again, we thank you for your time. We thank you for all that you shared today. And everyone who joined us today, we thank you for joining us again for another Faculty Spotlight. We see you again next Friday at 9. Have a great day and a great weekend. Bye now.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you, Dr. Kim. It's been
for
wonderful.
thank you for your participation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.